On the line with us is Jennifer Stefano, the Republican strategist, vice president of the Commonwealth Foundation, fellow with the Independent Women's Forum, IWF.org, CommonwealthFoundation.org, and you can tweet her at Jennifer Stefano. Jennifer, welcome back. While progressive leaders eat cake, their constituents suffer, I think is the name of your piece today. Tell us about your concerns.
All right, well, I love that you had brought up Senator Elizabeth Warren, because I recently her two-income trap. And I think she laid out both the concern and the solution that I'm writing about when I'm calling out people like AOC, who want to soak the rich, but love nothing more than being with rich progressives. Believe me, at the Metropolitan Gala, there are no conservatives invited in. So you have these extremely expensive events. None of the elites wear a mask. The workers are forced to wear a mask. The workers could likely lose their jobs if they don't get vaccinated, but everybody else doesn't have to. So first, it's just that endless hypocrisy that we see, that the rules are for thee but not me. It's very problematic to most Americans, regardless of their political persuasion. But back to Senator Warren, what's more frustrating is instead of AOC putting on a dress saying, let's soak or tax the rich, why doesn't she actually put government money where it belongs, which is into the hands of the people? And the best way to do that is put education funding into the hands of the parents. And Elizabeth Warren laid this whole plan out to do exactly that via educational savings accounts and scholarships, and then inside the public sector allow for total freedom of choice. So there are no more boundaries drawn by.
Right. So I get it. You're pitching charter schools here. Let's privatize education after, George W. Bush succeeded in now 40% privatization of Medicare with the Medicare Advantage scam. And I get it. Republicans want to privatize everything. But, the piece that you sent us, starts out, our economic recovery from the COVID shutdown is still in its infancy. Policies that incentivize gainful employment, reduce regulatory barriers, let innovators fairly compete, and rein in government overreach are not genius ideas. Those are all, as you well know, Jennifer, conservative code words for we want to cut taxes on rich people even farther, and we want to deregulate government so that big corporations can pollute even more as long as it keeps them profitable. I mean, you're just playing out Jude Wanniski's two Santa Claus theory here, yelling about the Democrats spending money and saying we got to cut taxes and privatize our schools while we're at it.
So what do you care whether a school's public or private if children are being helped? What do you care how?
Because public schools are more efficient. Because when somebody is sucking 20% off the top to make a buck, or when somebody's trying to pitch their own particular corporate shtick or religious shtick on the kids of our country, our entire country suffers. That's why.
Like the teachers' unions. You mean the way they suck money out of the system? Let me give you a quick example.
Yes, I think people are entitled to be unionized.
Excuse me. Heads of the teachers' union in Pennsylvania and the city of Philadelphia, which is overseeing some of the worst failed schools in the country, the head of the teachers' union is paid taxpayer dollars. He hasn't been in the classroom in 30 years. You want to talk about sucking things away from the classroom, from public education? Let me just.
That's because he's running a union.
We'll start there. When you guys stop bending a knee to them because they pour their political money into the Democratic Party, you talk about rich.
Well, that's because the Democratic Party supports public education, and the Republican Party says, oh, no, let's turn it all over to the free market and let the billionaires run our schools. And it's like, thank you for a disaster. Our public schools, Jennifer, maybe one thing we can agree on. When public schools became a thing in the 1890s, one of the big, and it started in Boston, as you probably know, and spread across the country. Horace Mann was the big evangelist for it. But a lot of cities that had black populations in them, but white power structures, said, we don't want to be paying for those black schools. And so what they did is they set up a system where education is paid for by local property taxes, so that poor neighborhoods and black neighborhoods would continue to have poor schools, and wealthy neighborhoods could continue to have and build on really nice schools. Why don't we just stop paying for schools with a property tax and start paying them out of the general fund?
First, why don't you go back to the fact that Horace Mann created the public system that he did to keep out all the Catholics, the great unwashed.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It was to break the back of the Catholics in Boston. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely wanted to keep the Catholics out. Okay, so that's
no, it wasn't
number
to keep them out. It was to destroy their political power. But yeah, I'm with you.
So you get what I'm saying, right? So
yeah, I'm familiar with the history. I wrote a book about it.
And right. So let's just be really clear. This was all about power, and it's still a cartel built around and off the backs of children. Tom, let's both agree that what we want, what you want, what I want, and what I think generally every Democrat and Republican wants is to truly see all children thrive. Now, we can spend hours talking about the history of the system, but I'm not going in that direction, and neither are our children. And that's all of our children, regardless of color or gender or what have you. What we have been doing is funding failure. Education money continues.
We have not. There are great public schools in this country, Jennifer. They just happen to be in communities that have fairly high property taxes because they've got high property values. But right. The simple fact of the matter, here's the one thing, Jennifer, if I could just put this on the table, and then you can go as far as you want with this. Well, actually, we have 2 minutes. If we're talking public schools, people have control over that. They join the local school board, and they can control their local school. With private schools, you've got some corporation running the school.
First of all, they have no power. Look at all the people going nuts because their kids weren't back in school or their kids aren't masked or they are masked. There's no power. The power comes with the money. The money should go to the parents. Look out for a big government spending program. I think, like Elizabeth Warren wrote in her book, that we should take every penny, certainly of state education dollars, and give it directly to the parents, particularly low-income parents, parents of color.
Elizabeth Warren is not an advocate for charter schools. Please don't try to make her into one.
And what they want to do with their babies. Why you, a white man, got to step in and do that? Let's give them the money. Let them make the decision. I don't need to be told how to educate my child. And it's not right or fair that if I have the money, I can put my kid in a school that I want. But a poor woman, particularly maybe a woman of color, but certainly a low-income woman, can't have the same decision.
Right. So let's fix the tax system.
Give that money to the parents. Parental choice.
Let's have our schools funded out of the statewide general funds so that all schools across the state have equal funding.
They are. There's plenty of money.
They're not. They're funded by local property taxes.
Some of it, there's a percentage from federal government, local government,
it's
state
relatively
government.
Small.
Fair fact. And in fact, in states like Pennsylvania, there is infinitely more state spending in poor districts to compensate for that. That's why the state got involved, and we do pay for it.
I just don't understand, Jennifer, why you would want to turn the education of your children over to a corporation.
Oh, no. Why would I turn it over to a bunch of government bureauctors, a bunch of teachers?
Because they work for us. Because you can run for the school board and actually be elected and be in charge. You can't run for the board of directors of a for-profit education corporation.
That's a ridiculous statement. The vast majority of schools are profit, they're nonprofit. The Catholics have outperformed.
Even nonprofits are corporations. You're not going to, Jennifer, the Catholic Church won't even let you in as a priest, much less to run a school.
Why would I want to be? And let me just say, put the money in the hands of the parents. That's where the power is.
Okay, Jennifer Stefano, Republican strategist, vice president of the Commonwealth Foundation, fellow of the Independent Women's Forum. CommonwealthFoundation.org is the website. They also publish out an email newsletter, which I got this morning. It's a good one. Jennifer Stefano on Twitter. Jennifer, thank you for dropping by. Ow.